Welcome, curious minds, to The Deep Dive. We're brought to you by AI-deas, and we're proudly part of the Good Business Podcast channel.
That's right, powered by the PHINMA-DLSU Center for Business and Society.
And our mission here, as always, is really digging into how business can genuinely be a transformative force for good in the world. Today, we are jumping into a really crucial and honestly pretty fascinating deep dive. It's a topic that touches every single one of us: public accountability.
And specifically, the fight against corruption.
Exactly. And what makes this particular deep dive kind of unique, actually, is that it's been curated and generated with some help from AI. We used Notebook LM for this one.
Indeed. And, to guide our exploration today, we're drawing heavily on this really compelling article. It's from the Managing for Society column in the Manila Times.
Yeah.
And the title is Auditing Together: Citizens, Business, and Accountability. It gives a fresh angle on a really persistent challenge.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The article, it grabs you right away, doesn't waste any time.
No.
It dives straight into this major ongoing issue, these constant allegations of corruption, especially around public infrastructure projects.
Yeah, and it zooms in specifically on flood control initiatives, projects meant to protect people, but often compromise.
Right, before they even really start.
It really sets a stark scene. The article mentions President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. flagging these irregularities in his State of the Nation address. But then it gets even more specific. It highlights Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Maglong exposing what he called a highly organized corruption scheme.
Highly organized.
Yeah, not just, random incidents. This scheme involved collusion between contractors, bidding agencies.
The ones meant to keep it fair.
Exactly. And even lawmakers, which is disturbing, the alleged kickbacks. They were talking like 35 to 40% of the project costs.
Wait, 35 to 40% in kickbacks?
That's what the article reports. Yeah, astronomical.
That's just massive. It's almost half the money for vital infrastructure just gone. It really shows why we desperately need, real transparency, real accountability.
Precisely. And that is exactly where the article brings in this key mechanism, something already in place in the Philippines: the Citizens Participatory Audit, the CPA.
Okay.
And it points to strengthening this initiative, which is run by the Commission on Audit, or COA. Strengthening it is seen as a critical step against this kind of systemic corruption.
Right. But how do you actually strengthen it against forces that seem so well entrenched?
Good question.
So let's drill down a bit. What exactly is the CPA?
Yeah.
The article says it was formalized under a COA resolution, 2018-006, back in February 2018.
It was formalized then, yeah. But its roots, they go much deeper, right into the 1987 Philippine Constitution itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, specifically Article 2, Section 23. That's the part that really encourages citizens to get involved in governance, participatory democracy. And then there's Article IXD. That gives COA the power not just to audit after the fact, but to actually prevent wasteful and corrupt spending.
So the CPA isn't brand new. It's more like putting that constitutional idea into action.
Exactly. It's operationalizing that core mandate.
Okay, now here's where it gets, I think, really interesting and quite innovative, actually. The CPA doesn't just ask for opinions, right? It lets actual citizens and civil society groups voluntarily join COA audit teams.
Yeah, they're not just watching from the sidelines. They're in there, actively involved.
And they even get reimbursed for reasonable expenses. It's not just some technical tweak. It feels like a different way of thinking about who holds power accountable.
It really is. The article describes it as more than just an audit tool. It's a genuine reform strategy. It pushes for public accountability, promotes transparency, and crucially, it builds these partnerships between COA, the government's watchdog, and civil society. And what's fascinating, the CPA has actually gotten international recognition. Yeah, global auditing bodies have pointed to it as a kind of trailblazing model for participatory audits. So the innovative spirit is there.
Okay, so it's proven, it's recognized internationally, but the article seems to hint that even with all that, it still struggles, especially against huge organized corruption, these flood control issues, for example. The problem's scale maybe outmatches the solution's current reach.
That's the core tension, isn't it? Which leads to the big question. If the CPA is already successful, already lauded, how can it possibly get more effective? Especially against these really deep systemic problems.
Right.
And that's where the article proposes something really strategic. I think it's quite clever, actually, forging a strong collaborative partnership with the business community.
Ah, okay. bringing in business.
Yeah, not just as an extra thing, but as a vital bridge to fill the gaps and really amplify the CPA's reach and its impact.
That sounds potentially very powerful. We often think of business and government as, well, separate, sometimes even opposing forces. But what specifically does the article say businesses can bring? What could they actually do about corruption in public works?
Well, the article lays out several key contributions. Each one is like a piece of the puzzle. First, and maybe the most obvious one, technical expertise.
Okay.
Think about it. Engineers from big construction firms, financial analysts, supply chain experts, they have this super specialized knowledge, the kind needed to really scrutinize government projects properly.
Right, stuff that maybe a general auditor wouldn't catch.
Exactly. Their insights can help make sure projects meet tough industry standards. And crucially, help detect those red flags like crazy overpricing or using substandard materials, or maybe subtle problems in the contracts. Like financial experts, they understand market rates, complex deals. They're perfectly placed to analyze procurement, look through bids, and spot signs of collusion or weird pricing.
So it's not just general expertise, it's that specific granular knowledge of how things should work in that industry. They know where to look for problems.
Precisely. They become like a first line of defense against financial funny business, using their market knowledge.
Okay, so they bring that unmatched industry scrutiny. It makes total sense. They know the field. What's the next piece the article mentions?
Building right on that, the second big contribution is resources and logistical support. And this isn't just about goodwill, it's practical help.
Okay, like what?
The article suggests using corporate social responsibility programs, CSR. Businesses could actually fund essential training for those citizen auditors we mentioned. Give them the skills they need.
Ah, okay. Capacity building.
Exactly. And they could provide key auditing technologies, maybe specialized software, data analysis tools, maybe even drones for checking remote sites or advanced forensic tools.
Wow, okay.
And beyond tech, they could cover operational costs like transport and lodging for audit teams, especially for big projects spread over large areas. These are real, tangible things.
Yeah, things that cost money.
Right. And they can seriously boost the CPA's capacity, let it do more, reach further than government budgets alone might allow. It's about enabling the CPA to scale up.
So it's the know-how and the practical, sometimes expensive support to make these audits actually happen effectively on a bigger scale. That does change the game. What about transparency itself? How can businesses use tech to make things more open?
That's the third point, promoting transparency through technology. And this is where it gets really interesting, potentially disruptive. The article talks about using things like blockchain.
Blockchain for audits.
Yeah, to track procurement processes.
Huh.
Start to finish. Imagine every step, bidding, material delivery, payments recorded on this secure, unchangeable ledger.
Okay.
It makes fraud much, much harder because everything's timestamped, secured, visible to everyone authorized. You can't easily hide or change things. Technology becomes a way to disrupt those old corrupt pathways.
So it creates this kind of built-in accountability trail.
Exactly. And the article also suggests public dashboards, real-time updates on audit findings, making complex info easy for citizens and everyone else to see and understand. It's about being proactively transparent, not just finding problems later.
I can definitely see how that empowers people, makes the whole process way more open, verifiable. If anyone can follow the digital trail, that's a big deterrent. Okay, and the fourth way businesses can plug in.
Finally, businesses can support ethical advocacy. Lots of companies, especially big ones and industry groups, already promote good governance and anti-corruption as part of their values.
Why, you hear about that.
So by formally teaming up with COA through the CPA, they can push for transparency and ethical practices not just internally, but in wider public-private deals, in government procurement. Imagine advocacy campaigns led by respected business groups.
That would carry weight.
For sure. Raising public awareness about the CPA, explaining how it works, encouraging more citizens to get involved. It adds this layer of societal pressure and legitimacy, shows the private sector is serious about integrity.
It really does sound like a full spectrum. From the nitty-gritty auditing to resources, tech, and then broader advocacy. A really holistic approach. So, given all these potential contributions, how does the article suggest making this partnership official, making it stick?
It suggests COA can formalize things by setting up clear memoranda of agreement MOAs with key business associations, chambers of commerce.
Formal agreements.
Yeah, and these wouldn't just be symbolic. They'd lay out exact roles and responsibilities. Like, businesses might agree to act as independent validators or expert observers on specific high-risk audits, like these flood control projects.
Gotcha. Specific roles for specific projects.
Right. And maybe even join multi-stakeholder oversight committees, sitting down with COA, civil society groups, citizen auditors. Having that formal structure ensures clear communication, defines who does what, and embeds business insights right into the process. It's about moving from just cooperating now and then to a real institutionalized partnership.
That sounds incredibly robust, a multi-layered approach.
Yeah.
So let's connect it back to the start, those big systemic corruption problems, like in the flood control projects. How would this joint effort, this beefed-up CPA, actually dismantle those schemes?
Well, if you picture this strengthened CPA, powered by business collaboration, it gains serious teeth. It could run rigorous audits on procurement from multiple angles, making sure competition is genuinely fair. That cuts down the chances for bid rigging, for collusion between contractors and officials. Business experts with their insider knowledge of costs and practices, they could immediately flag crazy overpricing or shoddy materials. They could expose ghost projects or work that puts lives at risk.
Because they know what right looks like.
Exactly. They can evaluate project delivery against real industry safety and quality standards, which are often way more detailed than general audit rules. Basically, this multi-stakeholder oversight creates this dense network of vigilance. It makes it exponentially harder for those corrupt schemes to operate undetected or unchallenged.
So you create so many checks and balances, so many eyes on the process, that the old ways of skimming funds just become too risky, too visible.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that means the public money actually goes where it's supposed to go.
Precisely. Benefiting citizens through safe, effective infrastructure, instead of disappearing into pockets, undermining trust and safety.
This deep dive really hammers home how using private sector skills, resources, and innovation can fundamentally change public accountability.
Yeah.
It's not just about catching people after the fact, right? It's about building trust from the start and making sure these vital public projects actually do what they're meant to do for communities.
Yeah, and the sheer scale of the corruption mentioned, like in those flood control projects, it just highlights how critical and urgent it is to have strong, dynamic mechanisms like the CPA. The article frames partnering with business not just as, a nice idea,
Right.
but as a powerful, maybe even essential way to tackle these systemic issues head-on, to improve efficiency, and crucially, to start rebuilding public trust in how things are run.
So as you think about this, what really stands out to you? How could these kinds of collaborations to citizens, government auditors, business experts, all working together, really reshape our whole approach to governance, to public spending? What does that open up for your community?
And, as the article concludes so thoughtfully, it really boils down to ensuring public projects genuinely improve lives, foster resilience for the long haul. Just think about it for a second. What if every major public project, especially the ones impacting vulnerable communities, had this kind of intense multi-stakeholder oversight? Citizens, auditors, business experts, all at the table.
Yeah.
What could that actually mean for the future of our infrastructure? And maybe just as important, for our trust in public service.
That is a really powerful thought to leave everyone with. This has been a deep dive into auditing together, citizens, business, and accountability. A really profound look at how we can make business a genuine force for good. We really hope you found some valuable insights here, maybe a fresh perspective on a tough challenge.
And remember, knowledge is most valuable when understood and applied.
Thank you so much for tuning in to AI-deas, part of the Good Business Podcast. Until next time.